In the pulsating heart of Beirut, where the geopolitical tensions of the Cold War intertwined with the ancient conflicts of the Middle East, a woman of discreet appearance conducted one of the riskiest espionage operations in contemporary history. Shula Cohen, born Shula Kishak Cohen, had transformed her privileged position in Lebanese society into a platform for one of the most sophisticated human smuggling networks ever documented by Western intelligence services. For nearly 2 decades, between the 1940s and 1960s, this woman of Jewish Argentine origin operated under the radar of Lebanese, Syrian, and Egyptian authorities, coordinating a complex web of operations that would save thousands of Jewish lives from Arab countries during a period of escalating regional hostility. Cohen's trajectory perfectly illustrates the complexities of espionage during the most tense period of the Cold War in the Middle East, when ancient ethnic and religious rivalries overlapped with new ideological disputes between the West and the East. Established in Beirut through her marriage to a prosperous Lebanese merchant, Cohen leveraged her status as a respectable citizen to build an impenetrable facade that masked her true activities. Her luxurious residence in the Christian quarter of Beirut became a nerve center for clandestine operations, where confidential information about Arab military movements was collected and transmitted to Tel Aviv, while simultaneously serving as a transit point for Jewish refugees fleeing Arab countries. The historical context in which Cohen operated was marked by the extreme volatility that characterized the post-colonial Middle East. The creation of the State of Israel in 1948 had unleashed a series of Arab-Israeli wars that completely reshaped the regional geopolitical balance. Arab countries, newly independent from European colonial powers, were in a complex process of national construction that often included the systematic persecution of their millennia-old Jewish minorities. Jewish communities that had prospered for centuries in Baghdad, Damascus, Cairo, and other Arab capitals suddenly found themselves transformed into scapegoats for Arab nationalist frustrations, facing property confiscation, arbitrary arrests, and systematic violence. Cohen intuitively understood that her unique position in Lebanese society granted her privileged access to information vital for Israeli security. Beirut, known as the Paris of the Middle East, functioned as a cosmopolitan hub, where diplomats, merchants, and agents from various countries regularly met at seemingly innocent social events. The Mossad agent systematically exploited these opportunities, cultivating relationships with key figures in the Arab political and military elite. Her exceptional linguistic skills, she spoke fluent Arabic, French, English, and Hebrew, allowed her to navigate seamlessly between different social circles, collecting seemingly casual information that, when properly analyzed, revealed strategic patterns of crucial importance for Israeli military planning. Cohen's operational methodology represented a sophisticated synthesis between traditional espionage techniques and innovations adapted to the cultural specificities of the Middle East. She established a network of contacts extending from small merchants to high-ranking officers, each providing fragments of information that, when combined, formed a comprehensive picture of Arab military capabilities and intentions. Her house transformed into a clandestine communications center, equipped with state-of-the-art radio transmitters that maintained regular contact with the Mossad headquarters in Tel Aviv. Transmissions were carried out at specific times, utilizing complex codes that had been developed specifically for her operations. Simultaneously with intelligence-gathering activities, Cohen coordinated a humanitarian operation of impressive scale aimed at rescuing Jews from Arab countries in increasing danger. The operation, known internally within Mossad as Operation Magic Carpet in its Lebanese phase, required extraordinarily complex logistics, including document forgery, the establishment of safe escape routes, and coordination with support networks in multiple countries. Cohen worked in close collaboration with international Jewish organizations, including the Joint Distribution Committee and the Jewish Agency, which provided the necessary financial resources to keep the operation running continuously. The geopolitical dimension of Cohen's activities cannot be understood without considering the broader context of the Cold War in the Middle East. The region had become a crucial battleground between the superpowers, with the United States and the Soviet Union competing for influence over the newly formed Arab states. France and Great Britain, former colonial powers, desperately attempted to maintain their relevance in a region that had been central to their empires. Israel, in turn, sought to establish strategic alliances that would guarantee its survival in a hostile environment, while simultaneously developing intelligence capabilities that would allow it to anticipate and neutralize existential threats. In this complex geopolitical chessboard, Cohen's operations assumed an importance that greatly transcended their immediate humanitarian dimensions. The information she collected on troop movements, arms acquisitions, and Arab strategic plans was crucial for Israeli military planning during a period where any informational advantage could determine the difference between victory and defeat in future conflicts. At the same time, her humanitarian rescue operations contributed to demographically strengthening the young Israeli state, providing a constant source of specialized immigrants who bolstered both the country's economy and its technical capabilities. The sophistication of the operations coordinated by Cohen also reflected the rapid development of Mossad's capabilities as one of the world's most effective intelligence organizations. Founded only in 1949, the Israeli Secret Service had quickly developed operational techniques that combined traditions of European intelligence with innovations adapted to the Middle East's specific characteristics. Cohen represented the prototype of the ideal agent for this environment. Culturally integrated, linguistically versatile, socially established, and psychologically resilient to endure the extraordinary pressures of a double life maintained for decades. Her residence in Beirut functioned as a microcosm of the broader regional tensions. During the day, she received respectable Arab visitors who considered her a gracious host and a model Lebanese citizen. During the night, it transformed into an operations center where Jewish refugees were discreetly housed before being transported to safe embarkation points. The risks were enormous. A single denunciation or a minor operational error could result not only in her own execution, but also in the dismantling of the entire network, carefully built over years of patient work. The second phase of Cohen's operations, initiated in the late 1950s, coincided with the period of greatest political instability in the Middle East since the end of World War II. The Suez Crisis in 1956 had completely redefined the regional balance of power, while the rise of Gamal Abdel Nasser in Egypt represented an existential threat not only to Israel, but to the entire established order in the Middle East. Nasser, with his revolutionary charisma and his pan-Arabist rhetoric, inspired nationalist movements throughout the Arab world that often included explicit anti-Semitic components. In this context of growing radicalization, the Jewish communities of Arab countries found themselves in a situation of extreme vulnerability that required increasingly sophisticated operational responses. Cohen adapted her techniques to the new realities, developing safer communication methods and establishing alternative escape routes that could function even under conditions of greater governmental surveillance. Her network expanded to include contacts in Damascus, Baghdad, and Cairo, creating a web of communications that allowed the coordination of simultaneous operations in multiple countries. The technological dimension of Cohen's operations also evolved rapidly to keep pace with Cold War developments. The radio transmitters used in her communications with Tel Aviv were regularly updated with more sophisticated equipment that allowed for safer and more difficult to intercept transmissions. At the same time, document forgery methods became progressively more refined, incorporating techniques developed by the intelligence services of the superpowers. This constant technological evolution was essential to maintain operational security in an environment where Arab counterintelligence services were also rapidly improving their capabilities for detecting and neutralizing foreign espionage activities. The period between 1959 and 1961 marked the peak of the operations coordinated by Cohen, when her network reached its maximum extent and effectiveness. During these crucial years, thousands of Jews were discreetly evacuated from Arab countries through routes that she had established and refined over more than a decade of continuous operations. Simultaneously, the volume and quality of military intelligence information she transmitted to Tel Aviv reached levels that decisively contributed to Israeli preparation for the looming conflicts. Her ability to predict Arab military movements with remarkable precision transformed her into one of Mossad's most valuable intelligence sources during this critical period. However, the very success of Cohen's operations began to attract unwanted attention from Lebanese and Syrian security services, who gradually perceived suspicious patterns in the activities of a seemingly respectable citizen. The intensification of governmental surveillance, combined with the increasing sophistication of Arab counterintelligence methods, created an increasingly dangerous operational environment that required ever more elaborate precautions. Cohen intuitively understood that the time for her mission was running out, but the strategic importance of her operations for Israeli security made any rushed withdrawal that could compromise the carefully constructed network impossible. The third phase of Shula Cohen's operations began in 1962, marked by a growing awareness among Arab intelligence services of the existence of a sophisticated espionage network operating in the heart of Beirut. This perception did not result from a specific discovery, but rather from the gradual accumulation of small clues that, when analyzed together, suggested the presence of an intelligence operation of considerable scale. The growth of regional tensions, particularly after the formation of the United Arab Republic under Nasser's leadership, had led Arab governments to significantly intensify their internal security measures, making clandestine operations progressively riskier and more complex. Cohen adapted to this new operational environment by implementing more rigorous security protocols that included the absolute compartmentalization of information among different cells of her network. Each operative knew only the details strictly necessary to perform their specific function, eliminating the risk that a single capture could compromise the entire operation. Communications with Tel Aviv were reduced to the indispensable minimum, utilizing more sophisticated codes and irregular transmission times that hindered detection by Arab monitoring services. Simultaneously, she developed early warning systems that allowed for the rapid evacuation of refugees in case of an imminent threat of discovery. The psychological dimension of operations during this period required extraordinary mental resilience from Cohen and her collaborators. The constant pressure to maintain a facade of normalcy while coordinating activities that could result in summary execution if discovered created a state of permanent tension that few individuals would be able to withstand for prolonged periods. Cohen developed self-control techniques that allowed her to function effectively in social situations where a single inappropriate gesture or expression could arouse fatal suspicions. Her ability to completely dissociate her public persona from her clandestine activities had become a refined skill through years of constant practice. The geopolitical context continued to evolve in ways that directly affected Cohen's operations. Algeria's independence in 1962 had created a new focus of instability in the Arab world, while national liberation movements throughout the region inspired increasingly radical rhetoric against Israel and its allied Jewish communities. The establishment of revolutionary governments in several Arab countries introduced elements of unpredictability that significantly complicated long-term operational planning. Cohen constantly needed to recalibrate her activities to accommodate sudden political changes that could completely alter the security environment in a matter of days or weeks. The growing sophistication of Arab counterintelligence services, trained and equipped by the Soviets as part of the broader Cold War competition, represented a technical challenge of the first magnitude. Traditional methods for detecting espionage activities were being complemented by advanced technologies for communications interception and electronic surveillance that demanded increasingly elaborate countermeasures. Cohen worked in close collaboration with Mossad technical specialists to develop communication equipment that could operate effectively in this environment of escalating threat, including miniaturized transmitters and more advanced encryption systems. During 1963 and 1964, the humanitarian rescue operations coordinated by Cohen reached their maximum intensity, driven by the accelerated deterioration of living conditions for Jewish communities in several Arab countries. Systematic persecution had intensified particularly in Iraq and Syria, where internal political changes had brought more radical factions to power who implemented openly anti-Semitic policies. Cohen coordinated almost weekly evacuation operations, utilizing a variety of routes and methods that included maritime transport through Mediterranean ports, land crossings through mountainous borders, and even aerial evacuations using private aircraft. The logistics required to keep these operations running demanded substantial financial resources that were provided through a complex combination of official and private sources. The Israeli government channeled funds through international charitable organizations, while Jewish communities worldwide contributed private donations that were discreetly transferred to Cohen's operations through Swiss banks and other financial institutions that guaranteed complete anonymity. This sophisticated financial structure allowed the operations to continue running without leaving tracks that could be followed by hostile intelligence services. The fourth phase of Cohen's operations, which extended from 1965 until her capture in 1967, was characterized by a growing awareness that her network was being systematically investigated by Lebanese security services. This perception did not result from concrete evidence, but rather from a series of small incidents and subtle changes in the behavior of long-standing contacts that suggested the presence of governmental surveillance. Cohen responded to this increasing threat by implementing even more rigorous security protocols, including the relocation of her main operations to alternative locations and the drastic reduction of the number of people with direct access to sensitive information. The intensification of regional tensions during this period, particularly the military buildup that preceded the Six-Day War of 1967, created an insatiable demand for intelligence information about Arab military capabilities and intentions. Cohen found herself in a unique position to provide this information due to her extensive network of contacts within the Lebanese political and military elite, but the increasing governmental surveillance made every operation progressively more dangerous. She developed alternative methods for information gathering that minimized direct contact with sensitive sources, utilizing passive observation techniques and communications interception that reduced operational risks. During the months preceding her capture, Cohen transmitted a series of detailed reports to Tel Aviv on Arab military preparations that provided the Israeli command with crucial information about the capabilities and limitations of their adversaries. This information decisively contributed to the planning of the Israeli offensive that would result in the overwhelming victory of 1967, demonstrating the extraordinary strategic value of the operations she had conducted for over 2 decades. However, the very importance of this information proportionally increased the interest of Arab counterintelligence services in identifying and neutralizing its sources. The operational methodology developed by Cohen during this final period represented a sophisticated synthesis of all the techniques she had refined throughout her career as a clandestine agent. She operated through a network of intermediaries that created multiple layers of protection between her and her most sensitive sources, utilizing verbal codes and visual signals that allowed secure communications even in high surveillance environments. Her transmissions to Tel Aviv were carried out using increasingly miniaturized equipment that could be easily concealed and quickly destroyed in case of emergency. Shula Cohen's capture in August 1967 marked the end of one of the longest and most successful espionage operations in the contemporary history of the Middle East. The exact circumstances of her discovery by Lebanese security services remain partially obscure, but available evidence suggests that her network was compromised through a combination of sophisticated electronic surveillance and human infiltration that finally allowed authorities to identify the true nature of her activities. The operation that led to her arrest was carefully planned over several months, demonstrating that Arab counterintelligence services had developed significantly more sophisticated capabilities than those Cohen had faced during the earlier phases of her mission. The timing of the capture was not accidental, occurring just 2 months after the end of the Six-Day War, when Arab governments were desperately seeking explanations for their humiliating defeat. The discovery of an Israeli espionage network operating in the heart of Beirut provided a convenient narrative that allowed Arab leaders to attribute at least part of their defeat to the superiority of Israeli intelligence, instead of recognizing the more fundamental deficiencies in their own military and political capabilities. Cohen thus became a symbolic scapegoat for broader frustrations that largely transcended her specific activities. The investigation that followed Cohen's imprisonment revealed the impressive extent of her operations over more than 2 decades. Lebanese interrogators discovered evidence of regular communications with Tel Aviv, detailed documentation on Arab military movements, and records of hundreds of rescue operations that had evacuated Jews from Arab countries. The technical sophistication of her communication equipment surprised even experienced investigators, demonstrating the advanced level of technical support she had received from Mossad throughout her operational career. Cohen's trial, held in 1968, attracted significant international attention due to the broader geopolitical implications of her activities. Lebanese prosecutors presented detailed evidence of her espionage operations, but carefully avoided any mention of her humanitarian rescue activities, recognizing that these could generate unwanted international sympathy. The defense, limited by the legal restrictions of the Lebanese judicial system, had few opportunities to present counter-evidence or contextualize her activities within the broader framework of anti-Semitic persecution in Arab countries. Cohen's final sentence, 14 years in prison, reflected both the legal severity of her activities and broader political considerations about relations between Lebanon and Israel. Lebanese authorities recognized that an excessively severe sentence could complicate future diplomatic efforts, while a too lenient punishment would be seen as weakness by other Arab countries. The decision not to impose the death penalty, despite the gravity of the accusations, also suggested a tacit appreciation for the humanitarian dimensions of her operations, even if these could not be publicly acknowledged. During her period of incarceration, Cohen maintained a remarkable dignity that impressed even her jailers. She consistently refused to provide additional information about her operational network, thereby protecting other agents who might still be operating in the region. Her resistance to prolonged interrogations demonstrated the exceptional psychological preparation she had received from Mossad for capture situations, including mental self-control techniques that allowed her to maintain her composure even under extreme pressure. Cohen's eventual release in 1972, as part of a prisoner exchange discreetly negotiated between Israel and Lebanon, marked the official end of her career as an operational agent, although her experience and knowledge continued to be valuable to Israeli intelligence services in advisory capacities. Her reintegration into Israeli society was facilitated by specialized support programs developed specifically for agents who had spent prolonged periods in clandestine operations under false identities. The process of psychological readjustment required sophisticated therapeutic techniques that recognized the unique challenges faced by individuals who had lived double lives for decades. Shula Cohen's operational legacy extends far beyond her individual achievements, representing a milestone in the development of Israeli intelligence capabilities during the formative period of the state. Her operational techniques became models for subsequent generations of Mossad agents, while her ability to maintain complex operations for extraordinarily long periods set new standards for operational resilience in hostile environments. The detailed documentation of her methods, preserved in Mossad archives, continues to serve as training material for contemporary agents operating in similar circumstances. The humanitarian dimension of Cohen's operations assumes particular historical importance when considered in the broader context of the Jewish exodus from Arab countries during the 20th century. The millennia-old Jewish communities of the Middle East and North Africa, which had survived multiple conquests and political changes over more than 2 millennia, were effectively eliminated in a matter of decades through a combination of official persecution and social pressure. The operations coordinated by Cohen represented one of the most effective responses to this humanitarian crisis, saving thousands of lives that would otherwise have been lost or destroyed by systematic persecution. Retrospective analysis of Cohen's operations in the context of the Cold War also reveals geopolitical dimensions that transcend the specific issues of the Arab-Israeli conflict. Her activities represented a microcosm of the broader dynamics of superpower competition that characterized this period, where questions of national loyalty, ethnic identity, and political ideology intertwined in complex ways that often defied simple categorization. Israel's ability to maintain sophisticated intelligence operations in hostile territory demonstrated a level of technical and organizational competence that contributed to its strategic value as a United States ally in the region. Shula Cohen's story remains an enduring testament to the individual courage and institutional dedication necessary to face humanitarian and strategic challenges of extraordinary magnitude. Her life illustrates the moral and operational complexities faced by individuals who choose to dedicate their lives to protecting vulnerable communities in circumstances where conventional methods of assistance are inadequate or impossible. The belated recognition of her contributions by Israeli society reflects a growing appreciation for the human dimensions of operational intelligence, which are often obscured by the needs for operational secrecy. Ultimately, Shula Cohen's career represents a unique chapter in the history of modern espionage, demonstrating how individual determination, sophisticated institutional support, and specific historical circumstances can converge to create opportunities for humanitarian and strategic impact that greatly transcend conventional expectations. Her story continues to inspire contemporary intelligence professionals while serving as a powerful reminder of the moral responsibilities that accompany the power to discreetly alter the course of historical events through carefully planned and bravely executed clandestine actions.